Welcome to Leadr Podcast, the ultimate destination for medtech insights, leadership inspiration, and the latest innovation. I'm Stephanie Plea, founder of Tribe Agency and your host for Leadr Podcast. I just had the opportunity to interview Dr. Joseph Antoun. He's the CEO and chairman of the board of L-Nutra, which is also known as their product ProLon. Dr. Antoun was incredible. There are so many insights to be had here, and I can't wait for you to hear the episode. He is dedicated to enhancing human longevity. He's got a seasoned educational background. He studied health policy at Harvard, public health at Johns Hopkins. He's also a medical doctor. There's so much to offer here, and I would just like to get right into the episode. I am super excited to welcome you guys to an amazing individual who actually I've never met. I've only corresponded with on social media, but a huge fan of his company. And I'm pleased to invite and announce our fourth guest speaker for episode 4 of Leadr Podcast today, which is Joseph Antoun. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes.
He's the CEO and chairman of ProLon and also L-Nutra. ProLon is their product, which I think everyone's familiar with. I'm obviously a huge fan, but L-Nutra is the company. So welcome, Joseph, to our podcast.
Thank you, Steph. And hopefully today we're going to help somebody change their life. And I invite everyone to stay tuned because you're going to listen to great stuff that might impact your longevity.
I completely agree. I mean, I could talk for hours about longevity. It's a huge passion of mine. I have a degree in nutrition. I don't know if I shared with you through all of our DMs, but I got a degree in nutrition. My original goal was to go on to be an RD prior to taking a lane in medical device. And I decided not to take that path because at that time, longevity wasn't really sexy and they weren't really talking about it. But I had a huge passion around nutrition and just making sure that you use food as medicine. And then I stumbled on ProLon years ago. And I've been a huge fan and advocate for ProLon ever since. And then a colleague of mine, Rhonda, actually had mentioned that she ran into you at a convention or something like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to know him.
Yes.
So it's such a treat to have you today and to get an opportunity to not only share your background as a CEO, but also really highlight the product that you have and that you were a co-founder of. So
I appreciate you very much. And I can feel your pain with longevity. We, food is the only product that we consume every day of our lives. Imagine that it took humanity decades and centuries to study food for longevity. We have launched, the University of Southern California has launched the first ever longevity dietetics and nutrition program.
I ironically just came back from a European vacation, and everyone has told me this, that our food in the US is very different than the food in Europe, and that you'll just feel differently. And I don't know if it was mind over matter, but I literally felt like I lost weight coming back after being there 2 weeks.
It's amazing. It's amazing how everyone, I mean, I do multiple podcasts, and this is probably the 5th, 6th time I hear a podcaster telling me the same thing. I was in Europe this summer. I ate more food, I think, than I would eat in the US. And I lost weight and I felt great. And it's amazing. We're way behind in the US on a lot of what we should be doing for food. We can talk all about it here today, but just we're concentrating food into calories, into very small, high calories per grams over here. Every food we're delivering a lot rather than cooking. And when you deliver, most restaurants, as you know, to enhance a little bit the taste of the food, they want to fry it. They want to add all the bad stuff to it.
They just slather with chemicals. Yes, it's crazy. Well, let's just dive into your background. I'm so curious for my own edification of just how you came to your current day. What's your origin story? What's your background? I looked through your LinkedIn profile. You have a significant educational background, PhD, medical doctor, multiple degrees. So I would love to hear about that, but also just, take me back to your early days and how kind of originated for you and brought us to
Yeah.
current day?
Well, I growing up, I had amazing parents, and they instilled into me that sense of generosity and giving back. And I was passionate about people who have a disease, and so I felt like maybe I'll become a physician, trying to help people first not become sick, and then if you're sick, cure your disease, which is two big missing issues we have today with the healthcare system, right? Today, our healthcare system, we meet people after they're sick. We're practicing sick care, not healthcare. And number two, 90% of us will die out of four diseases where we have no solutions for, right? 90% of us are going to die from Alzheimer's, cardiovascular, cancer, or diabetes. And these are the four chronic conditions that today we have not solved, and we accepted to live with them since the day we get diagnosed to the day we die. So me coming into medical school, I thought, well, I'll be a great doctor. I'll go to poor countries and I'll live in the mountains helping the poor access the right medicine, get them to a cure. And the shocking factor was that in medicine, I learned mostly how to meet people after they're sick, and I learned how to give each one 4 or 5 pills that they have to subscribe to for the rest of their lives. That was a big shocker. I remember during my rotations, I used to kind of a little bit tease my attendings and ask them, hey, we're prescribing. I wanted to be a cardiologist, and we see a patient and we give him a blood thinner and a pill for blood pressure and a blood glucose and blood cholesterol and so I always just ask them, well, what is the day they're going to go off that pill, right? So I'm writing a prescription. What is the endpoint? And there's no endpoint. It's an open refill every month.
Yeah.
And that created a big kind of revolt into me. And I was like, hey, we got to do things differently. And this is when I transitioned out of my medical degree and then went into health policy and public health. I did health policy at Harvard. I did public health at Johns Hopkins. And my goal was, how can I now advocate and lobby the healthcare system to be more preventative and to be more curative? Um, and this is what I did. And I started actually working in with multiple international governments and trying to support a mindset of prevention, a mindset of cure. And then I was hitting two walls. On the prevention wall, you know, we all know that we should eat healthy by now. We all know that we should exercise, that we should stress less, that we should sleep better. But it's not easy to. So meaning we're preaching people in prevention, but there's no true product solution that they can consume to enhance that. And you're competing, you're hungry, you should eat healthy, but when you're hungry and there's a burger in front of you, the burger is winning, right? So I was like, okay, how can we productize prevention? Because otherwise people like to consume, like to do the healthy thing and consume a healthy product. So there was no products in prevention. There was no product proven to help people live a long, healthy life. There was a lot of theories. And the wall I hit with cure is that there was no cure for cancer. There was no cure for diabetes. And the system is focused on everyone makes money when we're sick. The more I'm sick, the more my doctor makes money, and the more the pharma industry makes money. And so the incentive was kind of, the sicker we are, everyone is happy about it, up until the payers and Medicaid, and the government get bankrupt from that system.
Right.
So it was like, okay, how can I venture into now creating products for prevention and for cure? And I first joined the biotech industry so that I learned, because by that time I was a health policy expert with a medical degree and a PhD. And then I joined the biotech industry. I learned a little bit about launching products, pricing, sales, marketing, reimbursement, global launches. And then I left. I built my own company and I started looking all around the world for products of prevention and cure. And two things changed my life. And this is important a little bit for the listeners about our philosophy, how we think now about prevention. I was one meeting was with the CEO of the Buck Institute for Research on Aging. It's a big institution that does research on aging in San Francisco, in Marin County. And he changed my life because he said, did you know that all these diseases, that 90% of us, imagine out of 10 people, 9 will die of diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular, and Alzheimer's, they're all age-related. He was telling me we in medicine, we do it wrong. We think each one is a subspecialty and each one has a different cause and it's genetics and it's predisposition. He's like, well, even if you have the ApoE gene, you're not going to have Alzheimer's at age 22. You're going to still have it at age 70, right? Even if you have predisposition for cardiovascular, you don't have a first heart attack at age 19. You're going to still have it at age 55, et cetera, et cetera. And this was a big eye opener for me. It's like the machine, the cells and the metabolism, the machine gets used and abused over time, becomes weaker. The power of fixing, the power of healing disappears with age. This is the younger cells and the stem cells. And we're going to talk about all of that. And therefore, if the brain falls first, we call it Alzheimer's. If the heart falls first, we call it cardiovascular disease, but they're just falling out of a symptom of the body being driven and aging. And I always give a similar anecdote because I'm always frustrated with the car industry, because for our cars, we had mandated insurance. We take the cars to the mechanic, they put it on a system and they can tell you what's going wrong before the engine is burning. But we've never done this to our bodies. We just accepted that we give insurance for everyone for our cars, and we always check and prevent before that engine explodes on the highway, but we don't do this to our body.
Right.
But the other analogy I use for a car, if you drive your car for 300,000 miles and now you press to open the window doesn't open, it's not because there's dysfunction in the window and there's a reason for it's just, you've used it so long, right? And by the way, once you fix the window, after 6 months, you're going to have to fix the filters, right? And so it's exactly what's happening, and it's aging. Now you drive the car slower, you take care of this car, and then you're going to delay all these things going wrong. And this is what changed my mind around prevention. Prevention is really about keeping the cells healthy and the metabolism healthy. So it's about keeping our biological age younger than our chronological age. The younger I keep you from the inside, the further away you are from the onset of the first chronic disease. And I was like, how can we keep the cells younger? How can we slow down the aging of the body? And there are multiple ways of doing that. I'm happy to talk about those. But I started traveling around the world, talking to aging researchers all the way from Singapore to San Francisco, traveled all in between, and met with a lot of aging researchers, David Sinclair and Sachin Panda and Walter Longo and Brian Kennedy and Eric Verdun, all of them.
Yep.
And everyone was going back to the only proven today methodology to reverse biological age is the 5-day fasting mimicking nutrition. I was like, what is that? What is that? What is Walter? And they all mentioned Walter Longo.
Yeah.
If you ask ChatGPT today, who's the number one longevity nutrition expert of the world, you get Walter Longo. And if you ask ChatGPT, who's the number one fasting expert of the world, so both nutrition and fasting, you get Walter Longo. Mm-hmm. For those who are listening to us today, go buy his book, The Longevity Diet.
Absolutely.
Very important, life-changing book. The Longevity Diet will help you understand how to eat and how the body responds, ages fast or slower as a response to food. And if you have a disease, it's very important to use food as medicine as well. We're going to talk more about that. If you have a health condition, how to use nutrition to optimize the remission and the regression process. So
I got to stop you for a second, because there's so much you just said. I have to unpack it all. Number one, I just realized I have a shirt that says autophagy sells itself. And I think wore it for my photo shoot for my website. And everyone's always wondering what the words say underneath, but only people like us would know what autophagy is and why sells itself means something. So I should have worn that today. Of all days, I should have worn it today underneath my jacket. I
didn't wear mine. Mine says, "Talk to me in 5 days. I'll be younger."
That's amazing. And you're not lying. We'll definitely talk about ProLon and the experience that I had personally, but that I know every single one of your consumers has had as well. But you mentioned people like Peter Attia, David Sinclair. These are all people I'm very familiar with. Actually, in addition to Walter's book, David Sinclair has a book on lifespan, which is also incredible. And longevity. And then up and coming is Huberman. I don't know if you follow him at all.
Yeah, I follow on the supplement site. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's really into cold plunge, but there's just so much in this zone of industry. I'm calling it health tech. I don't think it's actually called health tech, but I really want to know. So I think that's a good kind of a good starting point to understand, where you were passionate and how it kind of came about. And I know you've been with L-Nutra 7 years. Is that right?
Yeah, as a CEO, 7 years.
Okay, right. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about since this is a podcast around leaders in this space, let's talk about your origin story as a leader. Before we get into ProLon, which I definitely want to highlight and discuss in detail, but tell me about, your first entry into leadership, post MD, post PhD, post
Yeah.
health policy.
Well, coming into, I think, the biggest debate is whether leadership is nurtured or it's by nature, and I think it's both, right? It's both, and I think, you know I was born to a son of a leader as well. My father has instilled a lot of leadership trait in me growing up, especially that entrepreneurship, resiliency, focus, right? He believes always these are the three recipes. I do believe, the biggest probably asset, to get things done is that the merging the execution with the entrepreneurship, but then with the focus to get it done. So I've nurtured throughout my adolescence, going all the way to school, and I always, probably at that younger age, was more of wanted to be the top of the school, then the top on the national baccalaureate. I did the French baccalaureate. For those who know, it's a national exam, and it was top on 16 countries. And
That's
then I
incredible.
wanted to go to Harvard, and Harvard doesn't do official ranking. I actually debated a lot with the admin office because I was number one, and they never released it. They said we used to do it in the past, but the guy who was ranking last at Harvard, he's ranking last, but he's last at Harvard, so we don't want to tarnish that reputation. So
Right.
but I was mostly of a technical leader. I was a technocratic leader when I applied to the Kennedy School to do the health policy degree. I did an essay on technocratic leadership, and I think I was that kind of leader, which is I love the science, I love the substance, I've loved the becoming a subject matter expert leader, which is more what I called at that time technocratic leader. And then when I got into the Kennedy, so that's the little bit the social leadership, entrepreneurship from my father, the technical leadership, my ambition, and wanting to always be number one like in medicine or as starting from school. And then when I get in Harvard to do my master's in health policy, I actually did two major. My major was in health policy, but I also doubled into leadership and negotiations. And Harvard changed my little bit leadership trait. I was there's a course called Know Thyself, and at
I'm gonna write
Harvard,
that down.
yeah, it's an amazing, and it's a shepherd. Literally, it's a shepherd who became a psychologist and then a leadership psychologist. Literally, an amazing human. He only takes 16 people in a class because he's gonna take them through a journey. It's not a course; it's literally a journey of transformation.
Right.
And basically, everyone wants to get into it. So we all sit in a huge auditorium, and it's a lottery. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the 16 names that showed up there. And what happens through the process is he does so many psychological tests on you, and he studies all your social media. He studies where you're coming from, where were you born, your parents, every post, and he knows you from day one. And he digs deep into you, and he puts you in a lot of conflicts. He builds exercises. He builds just to reach deep into your subconscious because he wants to change you as a leader from there. And for me, I
Mm-hmm.
was a technocratic leader, and my default leadership style was also it was a combination of micromanagement and or laissez-faire. So I was swinging with either I do it, and that's the technocratic part of it is
Mm-hmm.
I know it, I let me do it, let me lead you with it, or laissez-faire, meaning I know this chapter, you guys do the rest, and I'm going to let you go and do it. And then he helped me understand who I am. He put me in a lot of exercise that are very difficult built around me, which I never knew about. And they would put me in conflict with other people, and then I would realize what I was doing right or wrong, and then would go and withdraw the lessons. But basically helped me develop all kind of styles of other leadership and when to fit which style to fit it with which situation, which a lot of books would teach you that. But if you don't change, you cannot apply that, as by nature, right? Or by nurture in this case. And the fact that you can dig deep into your subconscious and put you in these difficult situations transforms you from the inside. And I start taking communication classes and public speaking classes, and at Harvard it's very transformational. At the Harvard Kennedy School, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And it literally, I graduate from there having a little bit more that, personable touch, a better reach to people, a better understanding of the social context, the meeting context, the people context, and then putting that and tailoring my leadership style into inspiring and helping those, for all of us to get in a better place. And they started applying that.
That's such a good story. That's such a great, I don't want to interrupt you because everything you're saying is so good. The know thyself, that would be incredible to be a part of or read like the cliff notes of. I actually did something similar with my former sales teams. Nothing called Know Thyself, but it was an authentic leadership course. And I'm a big fan of servant leadership, but I'm also a big fan of authentic leadership. And yes. I think people follow those that they believe are authentic, right? If they are living and preaching the same thing, then people are more inclined to trust them and support them and respect them and do things that they want them to do when they're not looking. And so I was always a big advocate for managers on my team to know thyself and to really understand how people read you too, just a whole emotional intelligence piece of it, being self-aware on how you're being received, but also how you want to convey who you are. And if those two are very much aligned, if how they receive you and how you are organically and authentically, then you'll be the best leader out there, because that's just the secret to success in leadership is being fully transparent and authentic to who you are, and people will follow you. So it sounds like he had you do a lot of inner work and kind of determine that maybe the technocratic solution leadership style isn't going to work for everyone, but you really found your own. That's an incredible story. I love that. All right. Well, let's talk about ProLon. And I know the company is called L-Nutra, but I am familiar with the product name ProLon. And so, as I mentioned earlier, you're the CEO and you're really setting the tone. And you were also, I believe, the co-founder of L-Nutra, correct?
The company was founded 14 years ago before I joined, but I was doing mainly research. Probably, I can a little bit take more credit for funding the commercialization. Right. It was a big, talking about leadership. My biggest probably achievement or challenge at L-Nutra was actually how to launch. If you think about it, well, I joined 10 years ago as a consultant, then 7 years ago became a CEO. But the task 10 years ago, this is 2012, 2013. Nobody had talked about fasting and autophagy and longevity. This is right? And so I had to come in and brand fasting. And at that time, when I first joined, I was like, coming out of these big schools. And I said, it'll be easy. I'll call my fellow doctors. I'll call a few investors. We'll tell them fasting is the next big thing for longevity, and they'll invest and they'll support. And the reactions at that time were, why do I need to starve my patients? Why do I need to stop eating?
So that your cells can do what they were intended to do.
you were a reasonable reader. What happened? Why you're becoming more religious and fanatic now? You want fasting. This at that time, so the first leadership and branding exercise was about how to rebrand fasting from a starvation, take the stigma, take the negative connotation to it, and then make it as a positive health intervention. It's actually one of the most positive or the most impactful, intervention. And today, if you ask people on the street, hey, do you do fasting? the response is yes or no, but the assumption is it's a positive thing to my health. I sometimes do it, I sometimes don't do it, but at least that was a big brand rebranding and a big leadership on coordinating, because at that time also nobody makes money out of pushing fasting. So it's not like there were
Right.
600 companies creating a market. We had a
Right.
fasting mimicking nutrition, so we were the
Right.
only company selling a product into fasting. We had to do this for the world, and obviously our founder Walter Longo was super high credible. So a lot of the Jason Fungs and the Peter Atiyahs and the Mark Hymans, they all came and rallied around seeing his science, and we created a movement around fasting, and it became the number one diet for 3 years in a row between 2019 and 2022. But
Is
that
that
was,
right? ProLon did?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, the intermittent fasting. ProLon
Oh,
is part
okay.
of it.
Got it.
Intermittent fasting was number one diet in America 2019, 2020, 2021. 2022 is number three, but three to clean eating and meaning general patterns. But as a diet, is still superior intermittent fasting to, say, a low carb or the ketogenic or the big
Yep.
ones. And
Yeah.
and
That's
we had to,
interesting, the timeline on that, because that's actually when I was in really heavy into intermittent fasting. I was doing the 16/8. I got the Zero app. I was kind of going between the 16/8 and then I would do the ProLon, for 5 days, kind of in between. And I was really into it during that time period. I'm a little bit more lax about it now, but I saw huge benefits. So, specifically to your company, since you did kind of have to redefine and rebrand, and putting fasting in a positive light and kind of shedding light on how, it's inflammation is the root of all evil when it comes to disease, as you, I
yeah,
think, are very well aware.
yeah,
And food, especially in the US diet, does cause inflammation.
yes,
And ridding yourself of that gives your body the ability to heal itself, through autophagy and just taking that energy and putting it towards cleaning house. So I get that. But tell me, when you went through this whole rebranding process with ProLon, I'm a big fan of mission and vision. All the companies I've worked with in the past or worked for, we had some really strong vision and really strong mission. And I feel like people that are really good leaders set those tones
yes,
and consistently reiterate those to your
yes.
employees so that everyone's marching to the same drum. So what would you say the mission and the vision is for ProLon and for L-Nutra?
We spent countless, hours on this topic, and countless experts, because we're called L-Nutra. L is for longevity through nutrition. So L-Nutra, L, longevity through nutrition. ProLon is promoting longevity. So both the company and the product are about longevity. But we started with fasting because the fasting mimicking diet, for those listening to us today who don't know ProLon is a fasting mimicking diet. It basically helps you rejuvenate your cells and your metabolism over a 5 days period while consuming food. It's basically a food that gives you the benefits of fasting. That's the secret. And there's a lot of cellular and metabolic benefit when you do 5 days of fast, not intermittent, not 16 hours. We're talking about the 5 days. This is when your entire body shifts the cells and metabolism. So, so fasting was the core engine, right? Fasting was the engine of our Tesla, but the
Mm-hmm.
car was about longevity. Tesla is about sustainability. And so we spent countless hours, and at the end, and then what is longevity to people, right? What is longevity? Actually, 60% of people, when you do surveys, they don't want to live long. They want to live healthy long. And you have to flip the question to get a positive answer to it. So today, in order to put it all together, our big mission is to help people stay younger than their age. And that's how we see it, is like, if I can help you from the inside to be younger than your age, I helped you with healthy longevity. That's and the way we do it, we put science. That's the vision and the execution. We put credible science behind food, which is the product we consume every day, in order to keep you younger and healthier from the inside.
Which we call metabolic age, right? You have your
Cellular and
biological
metabolic.
age and your metabolic age, right?
Yes.
Well, okay. So that seems super clear. And I love that you're hoping to, through your product, get people to, at least on the inside, feel and technically are younger than their biological age. That's incredible.
I do want to interrupt because you said, hopefully you will introduce the products. I want to a little bit interrupt because the National Institute of Health for the first time deployed the problem. We talk about cell rejuvenation, but there was no machines to measure autophagy in humans,
Yep.
and everyone talks about that, but there's a lot of mice trials, but there's not a lot of human trials. So the NIH finally, and these are multi-million dollars machines, the NIH deployed few machines around the country in few selected universities. I just got literally yesterday the results from ProLon, the first product ever to be tested in humans on inducing intracellular flux of autophagy. And there's a huge spike of autophagy as of day 3 happening, which is what we've been preaching for a while. Fasting for one day or a few hours is not creating enough crisis for the cells to rejuvenate. And we're seeing a major spike in autophagy in humans on the first product called ProLon. And we just got the results yesterday. So we were able to measure, that's why you said metabolic, you're right, because it's easy to measure rejuvenation of metabolism. You measure HSCRP, you can measure cholesterol, you can measure spikes in insulin and IGF, and we have proven all those and tested. What was missing is to show the rejuvenation in the cell, and we
Right.
finally got it yesterday. So I had
That's
to,
incredible.
I had
That's
to
so
intervene and
good.
say this is the first time in history that a product is being tested in humans alone with no other changes, meaning we didn't ask for exercise or take this supplement, nothing. It was just ProLon. You see a spike day 3, day 4, it's just off the roof, the autophagy.
Yeah. I've done extreme fasting as well. I actually went with Rhonda, who we have as a mutual friend, to a spa called We Care. It's in Palm Springs. I don't know if you're
And you're
familiar with
talking
it.
about Rhonda Patrick?
Rhonda Ryan.
Oh,
Rhonda
Rhonda
Ryan.
Ryan, yes.
Yeah. So Rhonda and I are also both freaks
Fantastic.
about
She's amazing.
longevity and
She's
functional
amazing.
medicine.
Rhonda is amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so we did go to We Care, and We Care, you literally are on a water fast.
Yeah,
They give you supplements in the morning, but
yeah,
they don't really give you food, and
yeah.
that's a different experience. But the Prolon experience is so much more manageable. You don't feel like you want to eat your own arm off, and
This is why we were created, by the way. So this is people don't know that, but we were a water fasting research institution, right? So USC, the science coming behind ProLon started at University of Southern California, the Longevity Institute, where
yep,
Professor Walter Longo is the director. Now 17 other universities joined the research. You have now Stanford, University of Palermo, Genoa, Milan, multiple universities joined the research. But we started as a water fasting company and started with mice research. We went to humans, and humans cannot fast for 4 to 5 hours. And not only cannot, I mean, there's 0.1% that can, but 99.9 cannot, but also it's detrimental, right?
hmm,
It's a stress that the body goes through, and it's a very high stress. This is why the cells rejuvenate. So, in order to make fasting available to humanity, it was the National Institute of Health, it was the US government out of taxpayer money that deployed tens of millions of dollars into the research at USC in order to develop the fasting mimicking diet. And the results were so impressive that the NIH then gave us specific grants called SBIR grants. They rarely
hmm,
give those. You have to be like a priority, a critical health priority. They give us that money directly to in order to get Prolon and the cancer fasting nutrition and diabetes nutrition faster to the market. So we were created to respond to the problem that you just elaborated, which is
yeah,
it's so extreme to do. And I can elaborate a little bit more. You're going to lose muscle mass if you do water
yes,
fast. When you
right.
do Prolon, now we have 2 trials showing no loss of body mass, of lean body mass. And the third trial now is showing 2.4 pounds increase in lean body mass on doing the Prolon.
Is that
And
right? I was actually going to ask you about, in your future iterations of the soups and, what you take on the 5 day process, if there was any inference of doing something with more protein in it. Because in my brain, I do know that the ill effects of fasting in any capacity could affect lean body mass, and everyone's a complete freak about lean body mass, especially as you're aging.
We are the only nutrition program with 2 patents on protecting lean body mass. So this is very important. So when people diet, because you're on a low calorie
Yep.
diet, you lose muscle and you lose fat. When
Right.
you're water fasting, you also lose a little bit of muscle and you lose fat. When you do the ProLon fast, you don't lose muscle, you just lose fat. And why is that so? You don't need any more protein. So the fasting works, prolonged fasting works as a stress, right? So we're talking about autophagy.
Yep.
Your muscle is practicing autophagy. And what is the stress hormone that increases in the body when you fast?
Cortisol. Yep.
Cortisol and growth hormone. So inflammation, like you said, inflammation goes down from cortisol, but growth hormone is the next in line stress hormone. So you have very high growth hormone. If you're water fasting, you're not gonna, there's no feeding for the muscle to grow. When you do the prolonged fast, you have carbs and proteins that we have calculated not to take you off fast, but still feed the muscle. I'll give you a big secret here. A lot of people who put the CGM with prolonged, they say, why I have a mini spike at night with carbs and insulin?
Yeah.
To match the growth hormone spike at night, we actually induce a little bit with the soups at night, a small spike in carb and insulin. So the muscle at night is getting double support from the growth factors in the body to grow, and is getting the protein and the carbs from fasting with food, and the muscle gets maintained or grows a little bit.
So I can vouch for that because I am this big of a weirdo and a biohacker, and I do this as a hobby. I wore Sinclair's glucose monitor. He's not the one that founded it, but he has one that he promotes, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But I wore it while doing ProLon.
Yeah.
And I was a little confused that it actually, the soup specifically, raised my blood sugar. And it didn't for a long period of time, but I was...
Very short spike.
Yes.
So the biggest backlash, we didn't have to give that secret before, but the last 2 years, everyone is wearing a CGM. And this was by design. We have the right amount of carbs to protect the muscle, but not take you off fast. This is why we show you autophagy spiking at day 3, but you're getting the mini spikes. And this is the sophistication. People ask me, I mean, we spent $36 million into the research behind the fasting mimicking diet. 36 million. We have over 200 patents on it. This is true Nutri technology. This is not a diet and a food. And we know in the morning what you should eat, at which time, what's the hormones in the body in the morning versus the night, versus muscle, metabolism, absorption, microbiome, all this together over 2 decades got us to this ProLon. You should just do it as is, and it gets you the absolute longevity benefits.
That is unbelievable. First of all, that just made me feel so much better about all the times I've done ProLon.
Yes.
And it totally filled in the blanks for me when I did it with CGM. But even as a brand strategist, the number one thing you guys should be highlighting is the lack of lean body mass loss, and the fact that you do have this all tailored to feed growth hormone. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And that should definitely be highlighted because, as you know, in this longevity space, everyone's big on protein intake. They're big on lean body mass. And if you can really highlight and emphasize,
we figured out a way to protect your muscle and grow it a little bit while not giving you high protein. Because if you go on high protein, you increase IGF. It's a growth factor, so you're increasing the biological age of the body, right? So that's the challenge. Where if you go on low carb, low insulin, low carb, low protein, you slow down the age. We know that slows down aging, and then you live longer, but you live frail longer. And we came up with the science of the stress of fasting and nourished stress of fasting to protect lean body mass. We're launching also the L protein, the longevity protein. So we're talking about what you said, longevity and muscle relationship. Every time we eat proteins, IGF, insulin growth factor increase. So the body is aging a little bit, right? Every time we eat, we age a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is why you asked me about the vision, the mission, we said to keep you younger. So fasting for 5 days with ProLon definitely is a big rejuvenation, takes you biologically a little bit younger. And now we have a series of products that we're launching, which basically will help you age slower. So you want to have your 25 grams of proteins. We just finished a study, 3 years, cost around $5-6 million with a patent now on a subcategory of plant-based proteins. So we looked at amino acids and sequences, and we found sequences that will not spike your IGF. So it's a subcategory of plant-based. Within the plant-based category, a subcategory that actually spikes IGF even lower, and therefore you can take that for your muscle without paying the price of accelerating aging.
Wow. I'm just like a bigger advocate than I think I was before this conversation started. I'm literally going to do it on Monday. Well, what we were talking about, just, I obviously understand the value of ProLon, but again, coming from a brand strategy mindset, if you were to explain someone that, let's say, has never fasted, has never intermittent fasted, has never done a water fast, and doesn't really understand the correlation between fasting and longevity, what would you say is the problem that you're trying to solve? Like, let's be problem aware for a second. And if I'm someone listening to this, and again, I'm not, a guru in intermittent fasting, or this hasn't really been part of my arsenal of things I do for my health, then tell me what I am facing right now that could be solved by intermittent use of ProLon, because I know you're not saying to use this all the time, and I'd love to know how many times a year you actually propose that it should be done. But what is the problem we're solving with this?
The biggest problem we're solving today is we are eating all the time a high concentration of carbs and proteins, which is pushing, every time we eat is over pushing us to age and to accumulate fat. So we're becoming obese. 73% of America is obese, but worse than the obesity, every one of us, because of our current food intake, continuous. So it's the frequency of food and the quantity of food. We're accelerating our aging. This is why we're seeing heart attacks at age 44. This is why we're seeing cancer starting at age 40 more than ever. This is why we're seeing diabetes starting even at adolescent age now, type 2 diabetes. So we're accelerating our biological age. That triggers a lot of future, cutting our longevity. By the way, we just lost 0.4 years on our lifespan in the US. So we crossed spending 3 trillion now.
I've heard it's the first time in history it's going down, right?
Yeah, and we lost on top of that 0.4 years. So it's crazy, right? And because we're not targeting the problem is aging today. And if it's like I'm jumping on my car and I'm over driving it all the time, and therefore I'm going to have to replace one part soon, and it will crack sooner. So this is what we're doing to our body. And if you're just sitting and you're driving a car in a, say, Formula One car race, what you want to do, if the engine is heated, you mentioned inflammation, I call it. If the car is really being,
that's
awesome.
It's
a word coordinated by God bless his soul. I'm blanking on his name, but yeah. So if you're driving your car and the engine's getting heated because you're in a race, what you can do, you can slow down. That's intermittent fasting, right? We're not built to eat all the time. We're built to eat during the day when we're active, and then you don't eat over the night when your body is rejuvenating, is refixing, is healing. The problem, we're eating multiple times, and you remember the theories in the 90s and early 2000s where they told us you should eat 6 times per day, and that was like the most horrible thing probably we could have done to our body. We're eating at night, which is probably the worst thing you can do to the body. So everyone listening to us today, if you want to do one thing to change your life tomorrow, eat your dinner early. And that's the circadian intermittent fasting, meaning you should fast overnight. We don't care about 16 hours and 18 hours because there's a myth. If you do 16 and 18, you'll do autophagy. Autophagy happens at day 3. Cellular rejuvenation happens after 3 days. You got to get into crisis for it to happen. So do your 12 hours. Do front-loaded intermittent fasting. Have your dinner early rather than eating dinner late at night and staying hungry till 3 p.m. You starve your brain in the morning and you starve your muscle in the morning by doing that, versus you should not do that. Just eat during the day, eat your dinner, sleep hungry, and then the next day have your breakfast. And that's the right intermittent fast. This is how the car should be driven. You slow down instead of overheating and over pushing your car. And what happens in the Formula One car race, 2 or 3 times per race, you see them taking a pit stop. In the pit stop, the engineers come, check everything, change the wheels, change the guy, whatever's going wrong, they fix it and they send it back on track to stay healthy long. That's your ProLon. ProLon is a longer fast where for 5 days, I mean, with ProLon, you're eating, so not to confuse our audience. When you do ProLon, it's a food, it's a box of food that nourishes your body over 5 days with a special formulation of plant-based ingredients, all premium, clean, no artificials, no preservative. This is going to be, before talking fasting, one of the cleanest food you will put in your body. And then on top of that, it gives you the signals of fasting to the cells. It's like a pit stop. So once you cross on day 2 and day 3 of ProLon, you've done it multiple times. I've done it over 24 times now. The cell on day 3, you feel my body is transitioning. And this is where the cells say, okay, it's been a long fast now. I have to rejuvenate. I have to fix. And this is where the mechanics come to the car. They fix this car and they send it back healthier, stronger, on track. And you should do ProLon 2 to 3 times per year for your healthy aging and longevity. If you say, hey, I have health risk factors, genetic risk factors, I'm a little bit obese or overweight, I want to lose more weight, I want to prevent further, you can do it up to 4 times per year. But if you're healthy, you want to do ProLon just for longevity, there's few CEOs that will ever tell you do my product only 2 to 4 times per year. Do ProLon 2 to 4 times per year.
I love it. Now, what do you say to the haters that say it lowers your metabolism for being without food, even though I know ProLon does insert a vegan diet into the process? But what's your response? I'm sure you get that all the time.
We don't. They're right about water fast. We are against water fasting. The problem, they confuse us. I'm not pushing for fasting. I'm against you doing 20 hours of fast on water. I'm against you doing 5 days on water fast. We're against that because you're depriving your brain, you're depriving your heart that has to beat, you're depriving your kidneys. We're against that. We're not a fasting company. We're a nutrition company.
Right.
I love the benefits of fasting, so I'll give you the benefits of fasting, but I have to
without
nourish your
actually
body.
having to put your body through
100%.
that.
100%.
Yeah.
So water fast, it goes back to what you and I just talked about. When you water fast, your muscle cannot grow because you're not feeding it. So
Right.
your metabolism might rest a little bit. With the ProLon, it's the opposite. You're cutting fat selectively with ProLon, and then you're protecting muscle and maybe a little bit increasing it. So you're turning into a really lean, mean, fighting machine, basically, that has a very solid preserved metabolic rate. There's a lot of, I cannot reveal names, but there are a lot of NBA players, NFL players, big athletes that do ProLon. They don't do it on the active training set. They do it when they're mildly injured. They do it in the off season. Because of that, they want to cut the fat. They want to protect and rejuvenate. Remember, we're not just protecting muscle mass. We're upgrading the quality of the muscle cell from the rejuvenation and the autophagy.
Yeah, and I just to finish on ProLon, because I definitely want to talk about other things today, but ProLon 1 is super effective. For anyone listening, obviously Joseph is an advocate for ProLon because he's CEO of the company, but I can tell you I've used it multiple times. I've told a ton of people that are more than likely listening to this podcast about it. They've also used it. I pretty much always do a 5-day ProLon right before any vacation or any big event. Every single time I lose, and I don't think that this is what you lead with. I don't think that you're looking for significant weight loss as part of your solutions that you're providing. But I will say, by my own admission, I definitely lose anywhere from 5 to 7 pounds in 5 days, which is significant. And I'm sure some of it is water, but I feel great at the end. I look great. I look leaner, smaller, less bloated, more clear. Just, it's such a huge benefit that I don't know why everyone doesn't use this. And I would love to help advocate for ProLon because it should be everywhere. I mean, people, and I also know, that probably a second podcast on this, but there's got to be benefits if you're going through cancer or, like you said, cardiovascular disease. My sister actually had diabetes and unfortunately did pass away early through the complications. She actually had a heart attack during dialysis at 49. But that entire time, I feel like if she was doing something like this, where she was giving her body a break, she had a horrible diet. She did not manage the diabetes diet very well at all. She didn't count carbs or any of that. And, she was just constantly spilling blood sugar into her stream. and it was wreaking havoc. She basically died of organ failure. But I feel like there's so many benefits beyond just, someone that lives in Newport Beach wants to lose 5 pounds before vacation. There's a whole other medicinal side to water mimicking fast as well. And do you guys do studies on that? Have you kind of pursued that path?
Yeah, well, first of all, sorry about your sister, and
Thank you.
it's for people like her that we exist, right? I left everything in life to lead this first nutrition and food is medicine company. For those who don't know, our founder, Professor Walter Longo, who's the majority shareholder, he donates everything back to the Create Cures Foundation. So this is why I'm super highly biased for L-Nutra. Is not to pocket money in. We're going to donate the majority out back to the Create Cures Foundation. So this is why in this company, you mentioned the word in leadership, trust, and leading by example. I think we fully apply this in here. There's more empty PhDs in this company proportionally to the total number of people working than you can find in any other company. And we lead with ethical science. So you and I talked a lot about longevity. That's actually, L-Nutra has two business units. The longevity consumer business unit is called ProLon. To answer your question on health conditions, we have a medical business unit called the Food is Medicine, or L-Nutra Health. And L-Nutra Health has been doing research for over 2 decades on in partnership with USC, with other universities, on cancer, on diabetes, on Alzheimer's, and on autoimmune diseases. And so we're doing autoimmune disease research with Stanford and University of Miami. We're doing Alzheimer's with University of Milan, the trials. We treat everything like medicine. So even ProLon is tested in universities. There's nothing here that I'm talking to is coming from a book or from a I think or he thinks. Everything we do is randomized clinical trials like drugs. It's research based. And we already finished the trials on diabetes. So on diabetes, we've done two trials, one at University of Leiden. Leiden is one of the biggest health systems in Holland, and one in Heidelberg, one of the biggest hospital health systems in Germany. And it's showing that if you do the fasting mimicking diet 5 times a day, again, 5 times a month, if you do the fasting mimicking diet 5 days a month for 6 months in a row. So you remember, I said 3 to 4 times per year is for longevity. Now, for metabolic disorders, if you have diabetes, you do it once a month for 6 months. We're showing that 2/3 of patients, 2/3 decrease their medication. Remember, I mentioned how I evolved to join L-Nutra and no cure and no remission. So here we're showing 2/3 of patients are decreasing the medication in 6 months. It's just 30 days of fasting.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's believable, but it's unbelievable that it's not well known, right?
We just launched it 3 weeks ago. So we, for the first time now, if anyone listening here knows somebody with diabetes type 2, go to L-Nutra Health, l-nutrahealth.com. That's our website for diabetes remission. We just launched it 3 weeks ago. We're showing a decrease in 1.4 HbA1c in 6 months. We're showing 22 pounds loss, and already some people are off medication in 6 months. Again, 5 days a month only, so 30 days. Imagine, this is unheard of. Diabetic patients, they start with diabetes, they just keep adding. It's a progressive disease. Right. They add medications, they become insulin dependent, their kidney fail, and then they die. Your sister is a testimony to this. For the first time now, I'm saying we can take you off medication, two-third chance within 6 months, not 6 years, 6 months. We actually, one of the patients was calling us in the trial. He was about to drop out. We're looking what was happening there. He was feeling weak on third month. And when we just discovered it reversed so fast that he was still doing the medicine. He didn't go for his doctor to check up on dropping it. He's taking medicine on already non-diabetic, so his blood glucose decreased, HbA1c is normal, and we stopped his medication rather than stopping the healthy nutrition. And this is what medicine should be about, right? So right. Two completely wrong concepts, right? It's like, wow, you can reverse diabetes. Well, diabetes is the disease of overeating. And now I'm saying fasting reverses right? If you bring a normal, if you bring whatever a person doesn't know anything about diabetes, you tell them there's a disease that happens because people keep eating. We're
Right.
suggesting that they stop eating. What do you think about that? It'd be like this is what it should be. It shouldn't be like you keep them eating and give them
Yeah,
medication.
it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. And number two, when the patient reversed his condition, he was thinking about stopping the nutrition and keep the medicine because this is how we were educated. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like, no, stop your medicine and you're cured. Just eat healthy. And
Right.
we're trying to going back to leadership and entrepreneurship. We're going to lead now a big movement into remission out of diabetes, remission out of cancer. And
Yeah.
hopefully, I mean, Alzheimer's is a difficult disease, but hopefully we'll give at least a honeymoon period. Autoimmune, we know that fasting was in the books, in the old books of medicine for autoimmune disease. When you fast, you decrease inflammation pretty fast. You rejuvenate the immune cells. So we know very well that it's very helpful in autoimmune disease. We're doing the trials to enhance the proof. We already have published one, and there's two articles that we're going to publish soon on autoimmune disease.
If you ever do any, if you launch the diabetes campaign and you need any free volunteers, I'm happy to be an advocate and get it out on social channels because it is such a
Yes,
huge need. And there's a lot to be learned about diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, but a lot of it can be affected by their environment and can be remedied by it as well. And so I think
100%.
I actually did my senior thesis in college on the long-term complications of diabetes. And sadly, the end of my thesis paper was literally my sister's demise. Everything that I described came to life for her. And so it's huge. And if there's any ability to affect their life in a positive way, I think it's important to get it out there. All right, we're running out of time, and I do want to ask a couple other questions. You know, there's all this crazy stuff going on with Ozempic and Wegovy and all these like quick fix things that I'm not sure how I feel about them right now. But what do you think beyond that, or maybe even commenting on that? What do you think is the next big thing in the longevity and wealth or wellness and health industry? What do you think is coming up?
Well, first on the Ozempic and diabetes and Wegovy front,
Wegovy, yeah.
it's very important for people to understand that they're going to lose weight, but it's creating an independent a dependence on the medication because you're going to lose and use up to 30% lean muscle loss, right? So the day you stop the Wegovy and Ozempic, and at first we see this, we call it the Ozempic phase, a lot of the muscle reduction, right? And then at the same time, when you stop those, because you lost a lot of muscle, your metabolism is so slow, you're picking up fat very fast, right? The engine of burning carbs, which is muscle, has been reduced by 30%. When you
Right.
stop Wegovy and Ozempic, you're basically picking up back fat. And we know that from diabetes because Ozempic has been out there since 2017 and 18, and none of the diabetic patients basically ends up being, maintaining lean body mass or most of them, right? And being cured from it. It's very important for people to understand it's going to create an addiction to those drugs. And otherwise, you got to eat proteins at the same time, exercise, and wean off them. And this is why we love ProLon. A lot of doctors are doing Ozempic half dose with ProLon together. They decrease the nausea and vomiting from Ozempic. They decrease the side effects. ProLon maintains lean body mass, and together they're cheaper. Ozempic half dose plus ProLon is cheaper than the full dose
Right.
of Ozempic. But it's not something that we're not proposing drugs to anyone. We think with food we can solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I've got a few friends on it right now, and it just makes me hesitate. I'm a fan of natural everything as much as you can. I mean, I worked in surgery for years, and so if you get hit by a bus or a car, you do have to go and fix a broken bone. But so there is need for Western medicine. But I think so much we rush to every ill has a pill. And we don't really look at how your body can rejuvenate itself and how our cells are intended to heal from the inside out. And I think once people really understand that, they're going to start like not pacifying everything that's going on with them, not just putting a Band-Aid on everything. And Ozempic is just putting a Band-Aid on more than likely some kind of food addiction or, bad habits associated with it. And then you're also putting chemicals in your body. You're putting it through your kidneys. I mean, it's not something that is a good long-term strategy. So all those Ozempic users out there, ProLon is your friend. I would strongly urge you to go that direction. But I don't know if we answered the question just about this health industry. It's booming, obviously. Everyone's talking about longevity. Everyone's talking about CGMs and wearables, and people are getting a lot more well-versed in their health. So what do you think, you being in this space, what do you think is on the horizon outside of what's already available?
You have two clans. There's one clan saying, okay, how can within our current DNA and genetics, and without doing some deep change into the body's potential, how can we get to the next stage naturally? And we're part of that, meaning, okay, I think you're losing 10 years or 15 years of your life because you're not eating healthy, you're aging faster, you're not sleeping well. So how can I rematch you with your potential as you are and help you to get to 100 healthy? This is a clan we are. We believe in nature. We believe in the doctor from within. There's another clan that's trying to say, okay, can we do an intervention mainly through a pill or an injection where we can a little bit now play with how your genes are read, right? How your telomeres are, the length of your telomeres, or the energy of your cell, and this is when the NAD, the NMNs, and on all of those. So there's a lot of money and research happening there. There's a lot of promising data in mice, and there's always great mice data, but we don't have any human data today that has shown safety and efficacy in humans when it goes to longevity. So we are watching very closely. Most of the leaders in those fields are very close friends, and we talk all the time.
Yeah,
we're encouraged with few things. Metformin is encouraging, some NMN, some NAD, but we don't know. The longevity is tricky, right? Pharma gets away with it because, I have cancer today.
Right.
I have obesity today. If diabetes, if there's some side effects, I mean, people injecting Ozempic today, they know that there's a cancer risk side effect, and they're taking that risk because there's a short-term medical need. Longevity, right. Okay, I'm healthy today. You want me to take your pill or your injection today to maybe live an extra 5-10 years in 30 years. Okay, are you going to kill me on the short term? Is there any side effects on the short term? So longevity poses another challenge. Safety is prime. You got to be safe and then efficacious. And we're not sure with the NMN NAD that is all fully established. So we're watching this closely and we'll see. So I don't have a top candidate to put it out there, but there's, the rapalogs from the rapamycin and the metformin camp, the NAD, NMN, and other camps. And there's a lot of behind the scene work on these molecules, but we'll see. We don't have one that is proven today in human clinical trials. In the meantime, decrease your inflammation, use intermittent fasting, eat healthy every day, make sure you have your vitamins and minerals as supplements to age healthy, have a little bit more legumes and nuts in your life, and olive oil and DHA. And this will all help you reach your current human potential, which we think we should be reaching 100 healthy without any artificial intervention.
Yeah. By the way, I follow David Sinclair, and he's really into NMN and resveratrol and metformin. So I'm familiar with all of those, and I'm kind of just like watching on the sidelines to see, but he has had some pretty great success in rats or mice. So it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. Are you guys looking at coming out with like a supplementation line, or do you already have that in the works? Because all of those things, berberine, metformin, all of those, metformin is injected, but NAD, NMN, resveratrol.
Yeah, metformin, you can get glucophage or others in the form of pills. But we're actually about to launch again we're on the natural plant-based healthy camp.
Right.
So what we have done, we have looked at a lot of human studies that show beneficial effects of some ingredients for aging, meaning what does the body needs to age gracefully, to age in a healthy way. You have ECGC from tea extracts. You have caffeine. You have wasabi extracts. A lot of studies, by the way, in the Asian population is related to the wasabi consumption. There's sugarcane plant extract. Sugarcane, and a lot of people mix it up. It's not only for sugar. That plant is very highly rich in antioxidants. And maybe that's one of the secrets of the centenarians. When you study the centenarians in the blue zones,
In the blue
they do
zones, yeah.
consume sugar cane, and we're always confused, like how come they're, and actually that plant has a lot of antioxidants. And then DHA. So we said we know that these ingredients are ingredients of healthy aging. We decided to put them all together into what we call the L pill, L dash pill. A lot of our products we call them L dash from
Right.
L-Nutra, which is longevity through something.
Yep.
So for the first time ever, we have a dual cap plant-based pill called the L pill, that has DHA on the outside. On the inside has the wasabi extract, the antioxidants, the ECGC from tea extract, and a little bit of caffeine, which are all ingredients for healthy aging. And this is how we position it for brain health, for immune health, for cardiovascular health, and for eye health.
And is that taken just in the morning? Is it just like a once a day? Is it a powder? Is it like an AG1 type product or different?
No, it's two pills. You take
Okay.
them, two capsules, and
Yeah.
you take them within any of the three meals, either with breakfast or with lunch or with dinner.
Got it. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're heading on the end of it. I could ask you so many more things, but I don't want to overwhelm you or the audience. There's just so much out there in this space right now, and it's a really exciting time to be in it. So let's just talk about, the three questions I ask every guest speaker on Leadr. One, I would love to know a mentor of yours and the impact that person has had on you and why. And then just the other two questions to finish it out. I want to know about your superpower. Everyone has one, so I'd be interested to hear what yours is and why. And then lastly, any book that you would recommend that made an impact on you as a leader, because we do have quite a few people in this industry that are early leaders or emerging leaders or even new CEOs. And I always try to take wisdom from those that have come before them and share that with them. So let's start with the mentor. Is there one person that you want to highlight or pay it forward to?
Definitely, I make credit for my father mentorship, and I've done business with my dad. So a lot of people, when they talk about their dad, is about their father, is about growing up. I've actually invested in projects with him, and I co-ran projects with him for years. For 13 years, we've done. And we talked a little bit about my leadership default style as a technocratic leader.
Mm-hmm.
He was the opposite. He was the people person, and he was very courageous and very gutsy and risk taking. And that combination is a very healthy one, right? I was the planning one, the very focused, the very kind of number person, and he's more the people caring person. He's more the taking risk and the entrepreneurship. But then how to get it? He always used to tell me, everything runs through people. If you win their heart, you won everything, right?
Love that. It's
So
true.
everything, success,
Everything.
vote. You want to be a president, it's a people vote. You want to be, money comes through other people. Everything in life comes through people.
Yep.
And if you have the, when you meet a person, he used to tell me that it was very simple things, but very effective, right? But I say, hey, what do you think, you and I talking, say, about Rhonda, what do you think about Rhonda? At first, you're start typically by, I love her, right?
Yeah.
She is this, and that.
Right.
And that, so it's the heart and then the brain.
Yeah.
And this is what marketing is all about. It's the heart and then the brain.
Yeah.
So then my superpower, I think, I can think of a couple of things that probably are a good sweet spot for me. But one of them is I'm very intuitive and a little bit of, seeing what will happen in the future, which is very important for leaders when you say, okay, I think this is where we're heading in the next 5 years, or where the macro environment, whether it's the economy, whether it's the consumer market, and once you can see and you're 3 steps ahead, then you know what to do today to win. So that I've been always good at forecasting what will happen and be ready for it. And the second one is to lead by your brain and your heart. I think I learned this well. Again, I mentioned my father and then Harvard. Is a lot of people that work with me will actually say ambitious but soft leader that we rally around. And we have people here that have been before me in the company, and they're still here, and they will stay forever through the bads and the goods. And I think part of that is that, and you said leading by example. So if they really believe in what you're saying, and this company, we don't just say longevity, but we say about care and about donating back, and standing for the right side of history and building that, they will stick around you and they will love you. This is why they would work for you.
Yeah, that's very much, servant leadership philosophy as
Yeah.
well. Okay, well,
And the book is the longevity diet book for sure. Like this is, I can name a lot of leadership books, but the longevity diet book is a must read, guys. Here it's been a while now that it's been out for 2018, 2019, but it was a bestseller. It's a book about how nutrition can help you live a healthy life. We should definitely care about nutrition. It's the only product we put in our body every day of our life, every day, literally. And so it determines a lot our mood, our energy, our sleep, it's not just longevity, it's today. I tend to focus about the future, but today, our mood, our happiness, our microbiome, our blood sugar, blood energy, muscle, feeling, stress, sleep, energy, productivity, focus, all this is driven by the only product that we put in our body every day. Of course, there are other factors, but this is the only one that we know we consume every day. So take care of it. It's going to change your life.
wow. So I just want to say thank you. That was incredible. I know you do a lot of these podcasts, but I personally learned so much. And I know so many people that are going to tune into this are going to benefit. One, I learned a lot more about your product, which I've used multiple times, but I didn't really understand the science behind it. And knowing that you were so careful in the construction of it to affect lean body mass and to make sure that you're not putting undue stress on your body. But just overall, even your passion around longevity and Valter Longo's passion and just your giving back to the community. Huge fan of your company. Now I'm even a bigger fan. So I can't wait to get this out to the airwaves and also on social media. And, I'm happy to help in any way I can in the future, but really wanted to thank you for your time and being a part of Leadr podcast today.
Appreciate you, Steph, and thank you. And people like you are angels on this planet. They just convey, great ideas, whether on leadership or a substance or information. It can change people's life. You catalyze reaching, thousands and millions of people with it. And we thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.